This era has ended in the history of the European Union. And the decision you mentioned, bypassing Hungary, violating it in broad daylight, openly on the street, bypassing Hungary to reach for Russian assets, of course, it hurts us primarily because it marks the end of the illusion that the rule of law prevails in Brussels. Let's say the interpretation of the law has always been in their hands, so we started at a disadvantage. But still, you couldn't just close the founding cabinets, throw them aside. That's what's happening now. But this decision is extremely important from another perspective, beyond the Hungarian viewpoint. It's a declaration of war. That is, the Russian assets, the frozen Russian assets, tampering with that property, its expropriation, is a declaration of war. I have never seen a situation where taking away 200 to 300 billion euros from a country did not provoke some sort of retaliatory actions. There is no such thing. Because a person lets their little money be taken, the whole country gets looted. This cannot be allowed, so we are in a very serious moment, and your observation is undoubtedly accurate that the war-related gatherings, we now hold them almost week by week. But none are boring, and none are like the previous ones, because something always happens. The conditions and situations are deteriorating at such a speed. I would say a few words about Russian assets, if you allow me, since earlier I talked about understanding complex things. I'm sure you hear a lot about it, but you might not know what it is. Now, the international practice in peacetime is that every country has a foreign exchange reserve. This means that there is their own money. Because let's say Hungarians have the forint, but the forint is not accepted if we want to pay in other countries, so we convert a part of our wealth to currencies that are accepted, mostly dollars or euros, and this is in case our currency loses value. We use complex operations to protect the forint. This is called a foreign exchange reserve. Every country has one, and according to international financial regulations, it is usually mandatory that you cannot keep it in your own country. So the foreign exchange reserve must always be held in another secure country. Now, of course, it's hard to imagine that in the meantime, the Russians are negotiating with the Americans, and more than 200 billion euros is on the table. Then the well-trained Russian president, equipped with proper knowledge from the old world, and some of the best businessmen are negotiating with each other, while 200 billion euros lie there unclaimed. What I mean by this is that one of the key questions in the Russian-American negotiations is what to do with this money. Moreover, the Russians and the Americans have already agreed on what to do with this money. There are publicly disclosed documents about this, so I'm not saying this based on peeking through the keyhole, but because there are written documents. And in this, the Europeans were not given a say. Moreover, the Europeans are not clinging to this sum of money by chance. Because the Europeans, excuse the expression, have been feeding their own citizens from Spain to Denmark for years now, that you don't need to worry, dear Spaniards and Danes. People like you here in the stands, who only encounter politics tangentially, don't worry, because supporting Ukraine and the Ukrainian war won't cost us Europeans a penny in the end. So feel free to support the war, because nothing will take money from your pockets. But we will fund the war from the frozen Russian assets. And the Europeans believed this. Of course, we Hungarians didn't believe it. We've seen this before. Such things an intelligent person doesn't believe. But Westerners are not like us. They are not as educated in subjects like historical turmoil. And that's why they believe this. They believe in such things. And now it turns out that the monkey jumps into the water. And now, European leaders have to admit that, well, you will be paying for the war. Until now, we said no. But if this money is not available, you will be paying for the war. From Denmark to Portugal. And you will not only be paying now, even your grandchildren will be paying, because we have taken out loans that we cannot repay. And the interest on those, well, your children will be paying that. This will be revealed now. That is why the entire European elite is in fear. from the German Chancellor to the Slovenian Prime Minister, because the truth will come out. And if it turns out that there really is no money, and it truly cannot be paid from that, but must instead come out of one's own pocket, that will be disgraceful. Although they are Germans in the sense that they are already among us, so they are practically already us. But actually, 3 Germans are leading here, and they are leading the Union off track, or driving it into a wall, I think. The German Chancellor, Mr. Weber, the leader of the largest faction in the European Parliament, and Ursula von der Leyen, who is the President of the Commission. This is a German issue, and they think that either the Russian money is there or it isn't, and either the war ends or it doesn't. And if it doesn't end, then more money will be needed, and money must be sent to Ukraine from somewhere, so that it doesn't cause a political upheaval at home. That's why they never say to pull the money that goes to Ukraine. I always say, well, if we want to finance the war, then let's get the paperwork ready, and the pencils, and calculate how much goes to the Germans, the Belgians, see whether you can or want to chip in. But they don't do that. Instead, they say they collect some money and use it as collateral to take out loans.